Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email concierge question line. For inquiring about this or any watch on any of our platforms, please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. In 2023, the Heuer, later TAG Heuer Carrera, became a 60-year-old model line, and to celebrate, the collection has been redesigned. This is the 2023 TAG Heuer Carrera Chronograph 39 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. It is 14.1 millimeters thickened from lug to lug, a delightfully compact 45.9 millimeters with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. It wears beautifully. It's fairly chunky, but you can see how much of that is actually the bubble-like plexiglass adjacent sapphire crystal. It's designed to read as a vintage 1960s thermoplastic, and it's responsible for a lot of the thickness of the watch, but since it is sloped, it'll slide easily under a cuff. You can see that the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist, so I recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. Taking a look at the strap, it's a perforation pattern like high-performance automotive upholstery, but also like the vintage, often synthetic straps equipped on Carrera chronos in the 60s and the 70s. This, though, is calfskin leather in black. You can see it has a sheer cut edge, a monotone stitch on the bottom. You'll note that there are no perforations for actually setting the strap length on your wrist. The clasp system, which uses twin triggers for release, has a crimping mechanism internally, so you actually just feed the strap through that, you close it, you crimp it, all the excess length sits under the strap in the clasp body, so there's no need for minder loops, and the excess length isn't visible externally. You can see that the buckle features both satin and polish, little mark of distinction that you'll find on the case as well. Those enormous angular integrated lug profiles have been a signature of every Carrera through the years, even a few that were not chronographs, but this is the unarguable. This element always has to be present. You can see they slope in, they slope out, they're polished, they are also satinated, and then this watch has a dramatically domed sapphire. This is new across the Carrera line, redesigned for 2023, and I'm not even sure this is evocative of a plexiglass, because I think this is more domed and bubble-like than anything from the 1960s or 70s, but it is attractive, I will give it that. And you can see that the case is effectively a monoblock from the top because the bezel is barely there. The bezel and the case are integral with everything loaded through the screw-in case back. Now we've got a TAG Heuer shield on the crown, and then we've got pump-style pushers. You can see outboard, they're slightly dished and satinated. Then around their edge, they're polished for contrast. We do have a tachymeter, and like a vintage watch, the tachymeter sits on the dial, although the dial, like the crystal, is a bit unconventional. You can see it actually has an outboard-facing tachymeter scale, so it's on the dial, but the dial is rippled and rolled in such a fashion that the tachymeter actually faces outboard rather than sitting flat or dishing inboard. An unusual treatment, but okay, I like being different, and this watch is different. You use the chronograph along with the tachymeter to gauge the speed of an object, such as a car over a kilometer, and that is exactly what it does. So if a kilometer starts when you start the chrono and then you stop, well, you can see that that car is traveling just under 400 kilometers per hour over the kilometer. That's how it works. You set your units and you calibrate to that. You use the chronograph to time the event. We have individual indices which actually cut slightly into that dished ring. You can see how it's rounded outboard in a convex profile, and then it's concave inboard with those rhodium-plated steel indices cutting somewhat into serrations in that chapter ring, which can be used for reading minutes, seconds, and chronograph fractions of seconds. We'll do a loom shot here. The watch does have a small amount of photina, which you can see well on the bezel in the hands. It is fairly well loomed. You can read it in the dark, though not the chronograph functions. Each sub-register features a dished inner race that is satin metallic finished. The well, or bottom of each register, features a concentric pattern. Then you can see the outer face of each one of these sub-registers is polished, nice refinement. Why is the date at 12 o'clock, I hear you asking? Well, it is an homage to a 1960s model, the Carrera 3147 Dato 12, which had exactly this date treatment. Now, what's odd is that for this new Carrera collection, the blue dial Carrera 39 actually has the date at 6, whereas the black and the silver historically inspired variants like the one you see here. The black and the silver have the date up at 12 o'clock. And in good taste, you can see they've used a little faceted and stepped metal frame rather than just cutting the date window straight through the dial. So I highly approve. We have a column wheel chronograph. You can actually see the column wheel on the reverse side. It feels good, it sounds good. It's the column wheel feel you dream of. We also have a vertical clutch to engage the chronograph. You can see there's no stagger, no jump, no secondary extraneous motion when you start the chrono. So unlike a lateral clutch, a vertical clutch has no place. We have a vertical clutch here. And if you wish to leave your chrono running full time, you can do so. Thanks to the vertical clutch, there is no additional wear and tear. The watch does have a hacking or stop seconds function. Stop the watch, set it to a reference time, and then for that date up at 12 o'clock, we do have a quick set mechanism. The watch is an automatic winder, and there have been some changes. You could see that the bridges adjacent to the column wheel have actually been changed a little bit. We have more of a mono bridge now than in the past. The rotor design is new. You can see this is no longer the Heuer H02, it is the TH2000. So Carol Forestier-Casapi is now the technical head at TAG Heuer. She has been since 2020. She's slowly rolling out some changes to the movements, and here the changes are small, to the rotor, to the bridge architecture. Supposedly the watch has been made a little bit more accurate. The watch is COSC certified as a Swiss chronometer, and it now uses a bidirectional winding system. I'm not sure why. I've always heard unidirectional per JLC was more efficient, but bidirectional is perhaps more refined as it doesn't freewheel in one direction like a 7750 would, and I think that's really what's behind this change. All this is 100 meters water resistant, so different strap, and yes, you could swim with it. You could see there is a Edicron system here for fine adjustment of beat, error, and rate, which I always like to see. It's a 33 joule movement, and it is TAG Heuer's own, so manufacturer. If you love this watch, reach out to me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com, for purchase and pricing details. Oh yes, and if I didn't mention it, 80 hours of power reserve. That is right reputable in an era where 70 to 72 is becoming the standard. TAG Heuer, you impress me.